Hey everyone. Feeling a little overwhelmed by all the information out there these days? It can feel like you're constantly bombarded, right?
Hmm.
Like you're dodging information bullets left and right.
Totally.
But what if there was a way to not just survive the chaos, but actually use it to your advantage?
Oh, I like that.
Well, that's where critical thinking comes in. And trust me, it's way more exciting than it sounds.
It really is. People think of it as like this super serious academic skill, but it's so much more than that.
Exactly. It's like a secret weapon, a superpower for navigating modern life. And get this, it can even boost your creativity.
We're going to unpack all of that in this deep dive, taking critical thinking out of the textbooks and putting it to work in your everyday life.
Exactly. So are you ready to upgrade your mental operating system?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so first things first, what exactly is critical thinking?
It's not just about thinking hard, you know?
Right. It's more than that.
It's about thinking, it's about analyzing information, evaluating evidence, and not just blindly accepting everything you see and hear.
So it's like hitting that mental pause button before you react to something.
Exactly. Like
Have
when you
fun.
get that email from your boss that makes your blood pressure spike.
Or that disagreement with your partner that just sends you into a spiral.
Right. Instead of just reacting emotionally, you take a step back and you analyze the situation.
You look for evidence, you consider different perspectives.
And that's how you turn frustration into self-awareness.
It's so true. I remember this one time I was about to send this really heated
Oh,
email.
we've all been there.
I was fuming. But then I stopped myself and reread the email. And I realized I was reacting to my own assumptions about what it meant.
Not what it actually said.
Exactly. And that's when it hit me. The power of asking why. It's like shining a light into the dark corners of our minds, right?
Totally. We often react without even realizing why.
It's automatic. But when you pause and genuinely ask, why am I feeling this way? Why am I interpreting this situation like this?
That's when things get interesting.
It reminds me of that classic example of being stuck in traffic. Everyone gets annoyed, right? But what if instead of just fuming, you ask, why does this bother me so much? Is it really just the delay? Or is there something deeper going on? Like maybe you have this deep-seated need for control.
Yeah. Or maybe you're just really hungry.
Maybe. But the point is that traffic jam becomes an opportunity for self-discovery.
You're turning a negative experience into a chance to learn about yourself.
And that same principle can apply to bigger life questions too. Like, why do I believe what I believe about this particular topic? Or why does this social issue make me so passionate?
Those are big questions. But critical thinking can help us find the answers.
It helps us build a stronger foundation for our beliefs and values.
Instead of just inheriting opinions, you're consciously choosing what you stand for.
You're becoming the architect of your own belief system. But here's where it gets really interesting. Critical thinking isn't just about being more analytical. It can actually boost your creativity too.
Remember what Steve Jobs said? Creativity is just connecting things. But you can only connect the dots you can actually see. And critical thinking helps you see those dots more clearly, even the ones that are hidden in plain sight.
So it's like you're suddenly aware of all these potential connections that you never noticed before.
And that can lead to some seriously innovative ideas.
It's true. Like using your commute to brainstorm new ideas or reframing disagreements as opportunities for creative problem solving.
Turning those everyday moments into fuel for your creativity.
But what about bias? Isn't that something we're supposed to avoid at all costs?
That's what a lot of people think. But here's the thing, not all biases are bad.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, some can be incredibly helpful.
Like that positive bias where you believe in yourself even when others doubt you.
Exactly. That kind of bias can be incredibly motivating.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we manage the not so helpful biases?
The key is awareness. We need to be aware of all our biases, both the helpful and the harmful, so we can manage them effectively.
So it's not about eliminating bias altogether, which is probably impossible,
Right.
but about understanding how it influences our thinking.
Exactly. Like if you have a fear of public speaking, a critical thinker might ask, where does this fear come from? Is it based on reality, or is it a limiting belief that's holding me back?
So instead of being ruled by our biases, we can actually use them to our advantage.
That's the power of critical thinking. It helps you identify the root of your beliefs and behaviors so you can decide which ones to keep and which ones to challenge.
So powerful. Okay, this has been amazing. But I'm curious, what are some practical ways to actually start developing this critical thinking muscle?
Yeah. That's a great question. How can we actually put critical thinking to work in our daily lives? One area where it's super helpful is decision making. We're constantly faced with choices, big and small, right?
Absolutely. From what to eat for breakfast to whether to take that new job offer, it never ends.
It can feel overwhelming, and it's easy to get caught up in emotions or just go with our gut instinct.
Or do what everyone else seems to be doing because it's just easier.
That's where critical thinking comes in. It helps us pause, step back from that pressure to make a quick decision, and ask ourselves those key questions.
Like, what are my goals in this situation? What are the potential consequences of each option? What information am I missing?
Yes, we rarely have all the facts when making a decision. Critical thinking helps us identify those gaps in our knowledge and seek out more information.
Like a detective gathering clues and evidence.
Exactly. Instead of just relying on your gut feeling, you're evaluating the evidence before making a choice.
That makes so much sense. And thinking this way can have a huge impact on our decisions, whether it's a major life choice or just figuring out what to have for dinner.
It really can. It's funny, we often think of critical thinking as this big, serious concept, but it can be just as valuable for those everyday choices we make without even realizing it.
That's so true. And that brings us to another area where critical thinking is crucial, setting boundaries.
So important, but often so challenging to establish.
Especially in today's world where we're always connected and bombarded with demands from work, social media, family even at it. It can be tough to know where to draw the line.
I agree. Critical thinking can help us question those external pressures and decide what truly matters to us.
So it's about recognizing our own limits and saying no to things that drain our energy or don't align with our values, prioritizing our well-being and creating space for things that bring us joy and fulfillment.
Yes, exactly. It might mean having some uncomfortable conversations with people who are used to us always saying yes, but critical thinking gives us that clarity and confidence to have those conversations.
We can explain our reasoning, set clear expectations, and stand firm in our boundaries. Setting boundaries actually strengthens our relationships in the long run.
Absolutely. It allows us to show up as our authentic selves without resentment or burnout. And when we take care of ourselves, we're better able to truly be there for the people we care about.
It all comes back to relationships, doesn't it? And critical thinking has a huge impact there too.
It really does. We already touched on communication and boundaries, but it goes even deeper than that. Critical thinking helps us cultivate empathy and understanding.
Instead of jumping to conclusions or getting defensive during conflict, we pause and try to see things from the other person's perspective.
We ask ourselves, what might they be going through? What are their needs and fears?
It's about recognizing that everyone is doing the best they can with the tools and experiences they have.
And being willing to take responsibility for our own part in the conflict. Critical thinking moves us beyond blame and opens up space for real connection and growth.
It's amazing how this one skill, this way of thinking, can ripple out and touch every aspect of our lives. From the decisions we make to the relationships we nurture, it's all connected.
It truly is.
I don't know about you, but after all this, my brain is feeling supercharged.
It's amazing to see how powerful this skill is, right?
It really is. From making smarter choices to navigating relationships, we've covered so much ground. But I'm curious, what happens when we take it a step further?
What do you mean?
Well, what if critical thinking becomes less of a tool we use and more like, I don't know, a way of life?
That's a fascinating thought. Moving from simply applying it to specific situations to actually embodying that mindset all the time.
Exactly. We've talked about the practical benefits, but I'm wondering how it shifts the way we see the world and ourselves.
I think it all boils down to cultivating this constant curiosity and open-mindedness.
Always asking questions.
Yes. And being willing to question everything, even those beliefs we hold most dear.
That's where a lot of people get stuck, right? They think critical thinking means being super critical of themselves and everyone else.
It's easy to fall into that trap, but true critical thinking isn't about judgment or negativity.
So it's not about tearing things down.
Not at all. It's about honestly seeking truth, even if it makes us uncomfortable, and being willing to change course when we realize we're wrong.
So less about being right all the time and more about being open to learning and growing.
Exactly. Imagine the freedom that comes with not needing to be right all the time. You're free to change your mind, evolve your thinking, and embrace new possibilities.
It's like trading in an outdated map for a state-of-the-art GPS system.
Perfect analogy. But I can see how this level of self-reflection might seem daunting to some people.
It can feel overwhelming. Where do you even start to build this kind of mindset?
You can start small. Incorporate simple habits into your daily routine. Remember those challenges we talked about earlier? Active listening, seeking out diverse perspectives, questioning your beliefs.
Right. Those are perfect examples.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be perfect at it right away. Making mistakes is part of the process.
Absolutely. Critical thinking isn't about being flawless. It's about being willing to learn and grow from those experiences.
Embracing the messiness of life and realizing that there aren't always easy answers.
So it's not about always finding the right answers, but about asking the right questions.
And being open to where those questions might lead you.
Precisely. Those questions can open up some incredibly rewarding paths. It reminds me of that quote from Socrates, "The unexamined life is not worth living."
I love that quote. But maybe we can break it down even further. Instead of feeling like we have to examine our entire life all at once, maybe it's about starting with smaller moments.
You mean like examining our day, our interactions, the small choices we make?
Yes, focusing on those little details. Asking ourselves, why am I doing this? Why am I feeling this way?
Being curious about our own inner world.
And the world around us. Challenging assumptions, seeking out different viewpoints, and not being afraid to change our minds.
Remember, critical thinking isn't a solo sport. Engage with others, have those tough conversations, and be open to learning from people who see things differently than you do.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What one small step can you take today to make critical thinking a bigger part of your life?
Maybe it's asking yourself why one more time today, or seeking out a perspective that makes you uncomfortable, or simply pausing for a moment of reflection before reacting to something.
Whatever it is, embrace the journey. The world needs more critical thinkers, and it starts with each of us taking that first step.
Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.